Are believers dumber than atheists? Do people who believe in God have lower IQs than the rest? Certainly, I'm not talking about you. Looking at the headlines these days, you gotta wonder. People seem to be better than ever at believing what they want to in spite of the facts. The title intellectuals can connote somebody out of touch who lives in a world of ideas totally cut off from reality. Granted, that can be true. But the same charge can be leveled against many of those who might proudly call them anything but intellectuals. When 60% of the people in our country still think the president was not born on American soil, you gotta wonder. When almost 1 in 5 of our fellow citizens think he is a Muslim, you gotta wonder. When far more Americans believe in ghosts and UFOs than in evolution, you gotta wonder. When you listen to some of the things politicians are saying who are winning these days, you gotta wonder. Our tendency to dumb down everything is costing us dearly. This morning in Birmingham, England, a man and a convert to Catholicism, and later a priest, whose name was John Newman, was beatified by our Holy Father Benedict, the first ever beatification he's ever done himself. In this powerful moment in our church's history, and at a time in our nation's history when it seems the intellect has been overlooked at best and disdained at worst, by beatifying Newman, our church is celebrating the life of the mind and rescuing the idea of the intellect from the ash heap of the pejorative. Far from it, actually. We are holding up the intellect as a term of praise. Today, before the world, we are holding up the life of the mind as a term of praise. For this Newman, the life of the mind was seamlessly interwoven with the life of the heart. And it is both together that create a full and rewarding existence for us. As John Stuart Mill wrote, next to selfishness, the principal cause which makes life unsatisfactory is the lack of mental cultivation. To that end, this same Newman founded a movement on secular campuses that sought to form students morally and worked to foster their intellectual growth. 100 years ago now, he started that movement. And just some 35 years after that, a small group of students met in the basement of the parish up the street, Our Lady of Lourdes, and founded for this university a Newman Club. It was that small little Newman Club over 60 years ago that led to us sitting here in this chapel, in this Newman community this morning, still trying our best to do the same, to form students morally and encourage them in their intellectual growth. Here, where the life of the mind is so celebrated, not as an enemy of the soul or of the heart, but as a real source and a real support to the soul's work, and not as an aside to belief, not as something we have to suspend in order to believe, but rather something that must be listened to. Something that must be listened to and respected on our journey of faith and of hope and of love. For to this Newman and to all of us, I hope, the pursuit of a spiritual life and an intellectual life are inseparable. The life of the mind and spiritual progress are inextricably interwoven with each other. In other words, Washu, though many would beg to differ across the street, to be a scholar and a Christian are not in the least incompatible. Study without prayer can get prideful. Prayer without study can get goofy. What Newman would have us do is become lovers. Lovers of the truth. Independent thinkers, faithful to revelation, guided by this old church, the wisdom of this old church of ours. What he used to say was, from shadows and images into the truth. And that's the epitaph he chose for his tomb. From shadows and images into the truth. This was a lover of truth. And this was a love of truth that required of him his entire life. It cost him many a suffering. It was that pursuit of truth that led him to study the fathers of our church, to try to reform his own tradition of Anglicanism, and when that didn't work, to convert, even though that led to a terrible loneliness and the loss of some very dear friends. During that time, he was once called the most dangerous man in all of England, just for his thoughts. Can the mind be holy? Can the mind be holy? You bet, Newman would say in way bigger words. Holiness of mind is behind everything he did and wrote. He knew the power of human reason, and he knew that it could be a servant of faith. If you and I were to allow this great seeker of the truth to speak to us today, I think what he would say is, reason is to be trusted and respected, but never alone. Never divorced from the heart, ever. Because you see, faith is like love. Every love is reasonable, I hope. We think about it. We think about the rightness of it. We wonder if it's the right thing to do. But we all know that love also is accountable to reason, but goes somehow beyond reason. Try to give reasons for why you got married. Try to give reasons for why you married this particular human being, or why you sacrificed so much for him or for her. Try to give reasons for monogamy. Yes, love is reasonable, and so much more. So it is with faith. It is so reasonable to believe. We use reason to assist us, but still it is more, so much more. And he would add, reject as false anything that asserts the truth is completely subjective. You heard this gospel parable proclaimed this morning. Jesus in this story, as confusing as it can get to hear, is not really praising deceit at all. What he's praising is cleverness. What he's praising is that this steward used his mind to accomplish something. Jesus is saying to us this morning, be clever in this faith stuff. Be smart. Use your mind to help the kingdom to come. Use your mind to help the kingdom to come. Use that awesome brain, Jesus is saying, to be clever as a fox, to help you believe in him, and to accomplish his purposes. In other words, my friends, God needs your brain. God needs your mind. God needs your brilliance. Got it? On this occasion of the beatification of John Henry Cardinal Newman, perhaps I could invite you to do something right now, just for a moment, very, very briefly, and very much in your own keeping. I'd like to invite you right now to give your minds to Christ. To give your mind to Christ. To dedicate that noodle to him and to his purposes. Let us consider right now putting that formidable intellect that we've been graced with at the service of Jesus Christ and of his kingdom. Realizing that to do that is exactly what's required of us. Please, in the heart of your hearts, in your own quiet mind, please dedicate your mind to God. Are believers stupider than the rest? Only, my friends, if we're not smart enough to know the importance of our minds and our minds' place. Because it takes a lot of intellect to be a believer and a lover.